Founded in 1865, the Faribault Woolen Mill is a living testament to American craftsmanship. Our new mill was built in 1892. Here, irreplaceable machinery, some of it dating back to 1905, stands side by side with new technology. It is one of the last few truly vertical woolen mills left in America. It takes 22 steps to make a Faribault woolen from raw wool to finished product, and it all takes place under one roof. But it's the skilled craftspeople, some with 30, 40, even 60 years of experience, that truly give Faribault woolens their renowned comfort and quality. On average, the entire production process takes 10 days. We begin our process with raw wool that is brought to us in bales weighing between 600 to 900 pounds. We work most often in two grades of wool, medium-grade virgin lamb's wool and fine merino. Lamb's wool is a durable wool that produces a more familiar textured wool finish. Merino wool is a longer staple wool, finer in diameter, which weaves into a softer, more luxurious fabric. For stripes, plaids, and other patterns, raw wool is stock dyed before carding and spinning the wool into yarn. Raw wool is precisely weighed and placed in massive dye kettles, which work like a large pressure cooker. Half science and half art, colors need to be perfectly consistent. Starting in the picking house, we begin to separate the bales and weigh out the amount of fiber needed for a project. A special scale allows us to blend grades of wool or different colors. For example, a blend of natural white wool and stock-dyed black wool creates a heathered gray wool. The process of the picking house also gives buoyance back to the compressed fiber, preparing it for carding. Carding is the process of combining raw wool through a series of barrels wrapped with wire bristles. The last barrel's fine bristles are shaved to create a sheet of wool. That sheet is then split into ribbons that will be fed through two rollers, applying pressure and motion. The ribbons are rolled into loose strands called roving, the first stage of yarn. The rolls of roving are transferred then to a spinning frame. Spinning wool helps bind the individual strands of fiber together, creating a strong, fine thread called yarn. This finished yarn will go through one more step before it's woven into fabric. The last step of yarn production is coning, where the yarn is transferred to cones to begin the weaving process. Woven yardage has two levels of yarn arranged perpendicularly, the warp and the weft. The warp is a series of threads, one next to another, and on average 2,500 yarns across. It acts as the foundation of the fabric in which the second yarn, the weft, is woven. The colors used in the warp can also help alter the design. By using a multicolored warp, we create unique stripes and plaids. When a warp beam is complete, it's transferred to a loom for weaving. Each warp yarn is threaded through the heddle or needles of the harness. The harness will raise and lower warp threads, creating a gap for the weft to be inserted through. On a new project, this is done manually and can take as long as 2 business days before the equipment is ready to operate. On the looms, the warp and weft are precisely intertwined into the woven yardage. While most of the looms at the mill are simpler Dobby looms, we also have computer-controlled jacquard looms, which are able to weave far more intricate designs. Next, the woven yardage goes to the burler, where the fabric is taken off the beam and run through a massive backlight, where inspectors look for imperfections or irregularities, repairing them with scissors and tweezers. Finished product that will have a tassel or fringe are woven with a gap in the fabric, where a few inches of warp yarn is left exposed in the weave. The fringer gathers sections of the yarn in that gap, twists it together, and inserts a thread to hold its shape. When the yardage is washed in the next step of the process, the raw threads will bind together to complete the fringe. Fulling is the next step, and is a process of intentionally shrinking the material. Using hot water to pull air from the core of the fiber and agitation to encourage the wool to bind in on itself, we're able to create a denser, fuller fabric. We then wash the yardage using detergents to soften the wool itself. Treatments for moth resistance and machine washability can also be added during fulling. Solid colored blankets and throws are woven in natural white and piece dyed. This allows us to adjust to demands for individual colors. After drying the fabric, either after its fulling process or piece dyeing, comes napping. Similar to the carding department, the napper uses barrels wrapped in wire bristles. This helps soften the fabric, giving loft to the fiber. It also helps increase the finished blanket's ability to insulate by creating small air pockets. At every step of production, we'll gather any unutilized fiber, from raw wool to yarn to scraps, and regrind it to make recycled wool yarn. Our final step to finished product are cutting and sewing. On third floor, the material is cut to individual sized units. Edges are finished with a serge, whip stitch, or tailored hem, and labels and hang tags are added. This is also the department that will give a final quality check. After 22 steps and as much as 10 days, a Faribault blanket, throw, scarf, or accessory is finally ready. Timeless and carefully crafted, they're made to last for generations and revered all over the world.